What's going on, guys? Welcome to the video. We had reports yesterday that the EU are planning to punish the UK, of course because we've elected Boris Johnson, who's ready for Brexit. They was no doubt hoping for a hung parliament so we can continue the different delay that the last parliament gave us. Which, if true, and the EU are trying to play hardball with us, Boris Johnson better say, you know what, we're off with no deal then, because he can repeal the Benn Act, he can now do what he wants. The Express are running a story on it. EU plot to punish UK exposed. Macron and Merkel plan to thwart Boris Brexit success. German Chancellor Angela Merkel has issued stark warning to Boris Johnson as EU negotiations revealed details of an uncompromising, bullying approach to trade talks next year. Go for it, we'll leave with no deal then, as I've said. The European Union will unleash a flurry of red lines within the next month as Brussels prepares to bully Boris Johnson into compromising on a trade deal during 2020. Boris Johnson's thumping victory was initially greeted with statements of relief among EU leaders at a European summit yesterday. However, the well wishes did not last long as leaders like Angela Merkel and Emmanuel Macron revealed the hardline approach that Boris Johnson will have to deal with next year. And you know what, I really hope they go down a hard line, because not only does that make no deal more likely, but it will also give Boris Johnson a chance to show his mettle against these European leaders. Following the resounding victory for Mr Johnson yesterday, this was actually the other day, European leaders are now preparing for the next stage of Brexit, the future trading relationship. Mrs Merkel said that the election's clear result added a degree of certainty to talks and paved the way for Boris Johnson's Brexit deal. However, she warned Mr Johnson that the trade talks will see the EU flex its muscles, saying we will have a competitor on our doorstep now. Well, you already have one, love. We are leaving whether you like it or not. You can either do a deal that will help you, or we can fuck you off and then you are right in the shit, as we will check out in a minute with a separate article. Great Britain will have to weigh its advantages to its disadvantages of leaving standards agreed in the EU. French President Emmanuel Macron also insisted that he would never allow an unfair competitor on Europe's doorstep. Well, guess what, Macron? You don't have a choice, mate. It is what it is. We are going to become an independent country, as Anne said.
And that is why Britain is leaving. And it doesn't matter which language you use, we are going and we are glad to be going. We're off.
Philip Lambert's MEP, who serves on the European Parliament's Brexit Committee, warned that Brussels will not compromise in their talks with the UK. Like I've said, that's great. We'll have a no-deal Brexit then. He said that the UK could be in for a more difficult time than they faced negotiating the withdrawal agreement. Mr Lambert said the EU will not be more flexible in the next set of negotiations. I know that in the Tory party, many believe the EU to be a paper tiger. Well, they need our money, so Boris better go hardball back with them. But when it comes to defending what it perceives as its vital interests, and the single market is one of those vital interests, the EU will be uncompromising just like the UK is. That's fine, we don't want the single market, they can have it. We don't want part of it. That's one of the reasons why we voted to leave the European Union. ITV's Brussels reporter James Mates said the EU leaders repeatedly told him that if Britain wants a close trade deal, the transition period of the end of 2020 will have to be extended. If Boris does that, he will only serve for 5 years, I can guarantee it. Last week, leaked comments from Michel Barnier revealed the EU's Brexit negotiator that it was unlikely the UK and the EU will put a trade deal together within 11 months. That's fine, as I've said, we'll have a no-deal Brexit then. Pedro Sanchez, the Spanish Prime Minister, stuck a hopeful note on Thursday saying, in 11 months you can do a lot of things if you have the political will. Yes you can, like leave on no deal mate, if the EU want to act the tit. Irish leader Leo Varadkar added, I think striking a trade deal by the end of 2020 is enormously ambitious, but we won't achieve it if we don't try, and we're determined to. I think the fact the Prime Minister Boris Johnson has a clear majority makes a big difference. And let me tell you something, the Irish leader is correct. He knows Boris has a majority. Technically, I believe Boris Johnson can just leave the EU tomorrow with no deal. But there is about a 0.1% chance of him doing that, obviously. So, next to none. But that entire article there from the other day leads on to an article from this morning. And this article headlines, They need us more than ever. EU depending on UK for £84 billion post-Brexit project funding. The EU will need the UK more than ever to help raise funds for an £84 billion post-Brexit space project. The Minister of State for Universities, Science, Research and Innovation has told the Express.co.uk. And it's not just for that project they need us, we are essentially a big part of their bank. They need us just to keep themselves afloat at the end of the day, otherwise the slack will have to be picked up by the other member states and of course their citizens. They ain't gonna like that very much, I can tell you that. But I'm not going to bother reading through this article because it's essentially about the space programme, which is not really relevant. But it's another reason why the EU need us. It's £84 billion for that. Then you have to factor in the £1 billion a month that we currently give them. They really need it. Plus any other funds we send over there and obviously don't receive back, which is of course most of them. But it just goes to show what I was saying about the previous article. If the EU want to play hardball, Boris Johnson has more than enough ammunition to do it back. And he could just technically say, you know what, sod next year, we'll go now, or we'll go January the 31st on a no-deal Brexit. That is very possible. He could do it if the EU want to play silly buggers at the end of the day. Now before I go, I want to thank our PayPal, Patreon, Subscribestar and YouTube members for supporting the channel, along with everyone who watches my videos. Remember to let me know what you guys think down in the comment section below. Leave a like, subscribe with the notification bell and share this video as it helps the channel a lot. And I'll see you all in the next one.
This Parliament is a dead Parliament. It should no longer sit. It has no moral right to sit on these green benches. They don't like the truth. Twice they have been asked to let the electorate decide upon whether they should continue to sit in their seats, while they block 17.4 million people's votes. Parliament is a disgrace, but they're too cowardly to give it a go. But the time is coming. The time is coming, Mr. Speaker, when even these turkeys won't be able to prevent Christmas.
There is a pattern consistent throughout history of oppressed people turning on the oppressors. Slaves against their owners, the peasantry against the feudal barons, colonies, Mr. Verhofstadt, against their empires. And that is why Britain is leaving. And it doesn't matter which language you use, we are going and we are glad to be going. We're off.